Good morning everybody. Today we're thinking about a VE Day, which is the 8th of May. What is VE Day? VE Day stands for Victory in Europe Day, and it celebrates the end of World War II, which was the 8th of May in 1945. I want to have a look at these pictures, these people. What do you see in these pictures? Who do you think these people were? Are these old pictures or new pictures? When were they taken? What's everyone doing? These pictures are of resistance fighters from World War II. What's a resistance fighter? A resistance fighter is someone who fought against the Nazis in World War II to try and stop them winning. But they weren't part of the army, they were sort of underground. There were people, normal people, who lived often in Nazi-occupied territory, and they did things to try and undermine the Nazi occupation. What do you think it was like being a resistance fighter? If you were caught, what would happen? You would be arrested. You'd probably be killed. You had to be a very brave person being a resistance fighter, someone that was fighting against the Nazis. Because what were the Nazis believing in? What were they saying the world should be like? The Nazis believed that if you were different, you didn't belong. You had to be one kind of person to fit in. So, for example, they murdered 6 million Jewish people because they felt that Jewish people didn't belong. But not only Jewish people. If you were gay or lesbian, you didn't belong. If you had disabilities, you didn't belong. In fact, if you didn't agree with the Nazis, you didn't belong and you were arrested and probably killed. So resistance fighters were very brave people who worked to try and stop that ideology. I'm going to talk about 3 of them. You see, resistance fighters are often forgotten about. Some of them forgotten about completely. And these are 3 resistance fighters that I think have interesting stories. So this first one is Jane Vial. Jane was born in the Congo in 1907 and moved to live in Paris in France, and she was a journalist. Now during the war, the Nazis occupied France. They invaded and occupied France, and what Jane did was she worked as a spy for the resistance, gathering information about where the Nazis were going and about where they were travelling to, all through Europe. In 1943, she was arrested. But she was very clever because she used a code to transmit her data. And when the Nazis raided her house, they found all of her information, but they couldn't crack her code. This was a very clever woman. She did survive the war, even though she was arrested. In 1947, she was elected as a senator in France. The second person is Lucy Schwab, and her girlfriend, Suzanne Malherbe. They were living in the Channel Islands. Again, the Nazis invaded Channel Islands and occupied them. Imagine if the Nazis occupied the country or the town where you lived. It would have been a very frightening time. So what did Lucy and her girlfriend Suzanne do? They wanted to make the Nazis feel like they were sort of outnumbered, as though they were losing the war. So they would write notes, and they'd write notes from an unnamed soldier, and they would drop the notes in the pockets of soldiers on buses or in cars, or leave them in cafes, to make it seem like this person was leaving notes everywhere and there was more than one of them. They were trying to undermine confidence all the time in the Nazi soldiers. They also produced leaflets in different languages and dropped them, smuggled them into the prisoner of war camps to give prisoners hope for the future. Lucy and Suzanne were arrested and put in prison. They were sentenced to death, but they did survive the war. However, Lucy never recovered from her experiences in prison, and she died within 10 years. The third person I want to talk about is Juan Diaz, who was born in the Netherlands and lived with his boyfriend in Amsterdam when the Nazis invaded and occupied the Netherlands. One of the first things that they did when they occupied the Netherlands was to make it illegal to be gay. What did Willem do? Well, he was a very good artist and he helped to forge identity papers for Jewish people to hide their identity so they wouldn't be arrested. He also produced pamphlets and leaflets to undermine the Nazis, to try and recruit people to the resistance. Now, there was a record office in Netherlands where hundreds of thousands of records were kept detailing the identities of Dutch people. And Willem and his resistance team knew that the only way to stop the Nazis finding out about the true identity of all these different people was to blow it up. So, on the 27th of March 1943, Willem and 14 other resistance fighters blew up the records office in Netherlands, therefore destroying the Nazis' opportunity to find out the true identities of all these people, saving thousands of lives. Within a few days there was a tip-off and Willem was arrested, along with 13 of the other resistance fighters. Willem took full responsibility in the trial for the bombing, but all 13 were executed. However, when Willem died, his final words were given to his lawyer and were published through his lawyer, and his final words were, "Homosexuals are not cowards." What do these three people have in common? What they have in common is that they are all fighting against the Nazis. They all believed, like us, in fact, they all believed that if you're different, you belong. And we want to live in a world where everyone is welcome. No one should be discriminated against because of who they are. So all the people in this assembly would have agreed with our No Outsiders school. They would have agreed that we talk about everyone being welcome. It's really important that VE Day is celebrated across the world. We're celebrating peace, we're celebrating working together. A world where everybody is welcome and no one is an outsider.